Here's my take on why Leafs fans have every right to panic about their team with 60 games to go in the season. Nobody in the organization knows why they're playing this bad, and they don't know how to fix it. How can you solve a problem when you don't know what the source is? And I'll explain that to you, and I'll give you examples of why I think the organization and nobody in it knows what to do. I mean, I can, and I know you can as a Leafs fan, can point out the problems within this lineup and how this team is playing. You can point towards the goaltending. You can point towards the defense. You can point toward the injuries. You can point towards square pegs and round holes like Max Domi playing at center and the lack of production from the bottom of the lineup. There's tons of issues. But what is the core problem? Now, if you don't know, the Toronto Maple Leafs were just embarrassed in Montreal on Saturday night. 5-2 hockey night in Canada in what felt like a must-win game. And I know that's crazy saying that in November, just 21, 22 games into the season, but it felt that way because the Leafs needed to string together some wins. They were putting together good performances, but they needed to win, or at least put in a good performance and pick up a point in overtime. I think Leafs fans would have been happy with that. I think the Leafs probably would have been okay with doing that, but that wasn't the case. They had a pretty decent first period. They still went down 2 goals, and then were absolutely demolished in the second period. I mean, the play-by-play guy, I think it was Chris Cuthbert, said it was Harlem Globetrotter-esque. The Habs were the Globetrotters, and the Leafs were the Generals, the Washington Generals. It was embarrassing. It was a statement game, it felt like, from the Montreal Canadiens. And the Canadiens heading into that game have just as many injuries, maybe not just as many injuries, but have key injuries and haven't been winning games up until that point. So it was a great spot for the Leafs to go into playing against a team who was having the same issues as them, low on confidence, but that wasn't the case. So they lose to Montreal on Saturday night, and after the weekend with the Buffalo Sabres win, they're last in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 6 of their last 7. They're the worst road team in the NHL, and they're currently on a road trip that kicked off in Montreal. They're giving up almost 5 goals per game away from Toronto. Plus, they have a mountain of injuries to some of their most important players. But here's what I mean by nobody in the organization knows what the problem is. After that Montreal loss in the postgame, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who has been really good this season, and I believe has a voice in that dressing room. I don't know if he's part of the leadership group, but he definitely has a voice. He's a veteran, has a Stanley Cup ring. He was asked why this keeps happening. Why can't the Leafs put together a solid performance from the first to third period? His answer? I wish I knew. That's a player saying that. Coach Craig Berube, after the game, he goes, I just don't understand why we can't get out in the second period and dictate how we're going to play the period. So he doesn't know why his team can't follow up a decent or a strong first period and then have a good period in the second. He doesn't know why. And it's strange because the Toronto Maple Leafs were probably one of the best second period teams in the National Hockey League last season. That's one of the reasons why they won the Atlantic. Now that's flipped upside down. They're one of the worst, if not the worst. I haven't looked at the numbers, but they're pretty low on that list. They continually get outscored, outshot, outplayed in the second period, and the coach doesn't know why. I think he's actually frustrated. He doesn't want to answer the question anymore, but he has to. After their win against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, where they got absolutely blown out for 40 minutes by Pittsburgh and had a great comeback in the third period led by their stars and won that game. Craig Berube was asked, why can't your team put together a 60-minute performance? He says, I have no clue. I don't have an answer for that right now. I mean, it's just not good enough. Again, that's the coach saying, I don't know what's going on. I can't figure out why my players won't do what I want them to do because they did it last season. They did it all last season. They were one of the better defensive teams in the NHL. And now they're not that. Brad Treliving, who just did a press conference a couple of weeks ago, actually, I think it was last week. He was asked, why can't this team do what they did last season and play the same way and put together 60-minute performances and play a strong defensive game, play a forecheck game the way that Treliving and Berube and Keith Pelly want this team to play? His answer? Great question. That's what keeps me up at night. I would say that just because you did it last year or last week, it doesn't make it so that you're going to do it again. You have to dig in. That last part makes no sense to me. If they're doing it last year, they can do it this year. But even the GM doesn't know what the problem is. Great question. That's what keeps me up at night. So nobody knows. But I feel like everybody has an idea. Could be the players. It's the coach. It's the construction of the team that Brad Treliving has assembled. It's the style of play. Maybe the player's not buying into the coach. And that's where fingers start to get pointed, specifically at the coach. Because if you can't find the source of the true source, the root of the problem, you look for a quick fix. And that quick fix would be firing the coach, which there's people on both sides. Some are saying he's lost the room. The players aren't listening to him. It's not a great way of playing. You're not going to be successful with this style of play. Where others are saying, well, listen, how many coaches are you going to go through? How many coaches are these players going to go through when the blame will finally fall on them? And I say, I'm kind of on both sides. You can't keep bailing the players out, but you can't move these players. What are you going to do? Ask Austin Matthews for a trade? You just signed Nylander, for the rest of his career, basically. He's not going anywhere. Everyone's got a no trade clause on this team. And if you want to ship out your stars, what are you getting back in return? Then you have to make a decision on where you want to go with your team. I keep hearing it's a cup window and winning is the most important thing. And what did Keith Pelly say? Good is not good enough? Well, okay. So that means you're striving towards your goal of winning a Stanley Cup. You can't be shipping out players. So you ship out the coach. You bring in a new coach like Pete DeBoer, let's say, because that's a big name that's out there. You get that new coach bounce. And who knows what happens for the rest of the year. But then you're probably going to find yourself in the same spot 12 months to 16 months later. Because it's the same players. It's the same core issue has always been here for a very long time. But I wouldn't be surprised if this keeps going that the coach gets axed, because that's the easiest thing you can do. But if you're Brad Treliving, you probably don't want to do that at the same time, because that is a shield of protection for him. That's his guy. Next in line after him, after Berube getting fired, would be Brad Treliving. And I don't think he wants that. And I don't think the Leafs are going to fire him anyway. So again, I go back to my question. How do you fix something when you don't know what the core problem is? Injuries, yes, are playing a part. Huge injuries, right? Austin Matthews. So you're missing your number one player and your captain. Anthony Stolarz was your number one goaltender last year, even though he was in a tandem with Joseph Woll. He was excellent in the playoffs, but he's injured. Chris Tanev, your best defenseman, the best defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs team. He keeps it quiet back there. He's steady. He keeps Jake McCabe playing at a high level, and whoever plays next to him plays better, and the rest of the group just fall in line with that. He's out right now for a certain amount of time because he's dealing with a head injury, and the injuries just pile up from there. Jake McCabe is day-to-day now. Nick Waz, day-to-day now. Matthew Nyes is day-to-day now. We don't know how long these players are going to be out for. But I will say, before a lot of these injuries, they weren't playing particularly well. I mean, it carried on from preseason. You never really paid too much attention to preseason, but they look like garbage in preseason. That kind of just carried over into the season. They look slow, disorganized, disconnected. The goaltending wasn't great in preseason. You can apply all those things to what's going on in the regular season right now. So injuries do play a part, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And the rest of the league has been decimated by injuries. That's one of the biggest storylines of the season. All of the injuries because of a condensed schedule because of the Olympics. Look at Tampa Bay. No Victor Hedman. No McDonough. Now Kucherov and Point are injured or day-to-day. Montreal. Kirby Dach, Caden Gooley, Patrick Laine, and Newhook out. New Jersey. Jack Hughes cut his hand at a restaurant at a rookie party. And he's gone for, I think, a couple months. Kovacevic is out. Brett Pesce is out. Fans and people are talking. The injury problem is so bad in New Jersey, and it's been like that for the past few seasons, that they're talking about a cemetery or a tomb that was buried under the arena, or the arena was built on top of it. That's how bad it is over there. Carolina has missed Jacob Slavin for basically the whole year. That's the best defenseman, one of the best, maybe the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. And these teams you got to keep pushing, because that's just what it is. Look at Winnipeg. Hart Trophy winner, Vezina winner, Connor Hellebuck, is shut down for the next few weeks because he needs surgery. Everybody's going through it. It's not an excuse, but it does play a part. But one thing I will say, and I'll end this here, Leafs fans have every right to panic because who knows where this season is going. And right now it looks like it's going in a horrible direction. According to moneypuck.com, I think they have less than a 7% chance to make the playoffs. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. Anything can happen. I'll end with this. Parity in the East is giving this team hope and a chance. They're currently, I believe, just 4 points or 5 points out of a playoff spot. I believe it's 4 points out of a wild card, 5 points out of third place in the Atlantic Division. And obviously, they got to leapfrog a bunch of teams. You're looking at teams like Florida and the Rangers. I don't know how long the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers are going to be in the mix. How long is that going to go on for? I'm not sure. Are the Rangers going to get better? The Panthers will probably get better. Are the Bruins legit? What about the Sens? What about Montreal? They can be able to deal with these injuries and their goaltending problems. So everybody in the East is bunched up. Most teams have massive question marks surrounding how well they've been playing and can they be this consistent and can they get healthy from these injuries just like the Leafs. So because of what Gary Bettman wants in this NHL, this parity, the Leafs are still alive. You put together a 2, 3, 4 game win streak and all of a sudden you're back in it. Things start to change. Confidence comes back. Players start to come back into the mix. And who knows? Maybe we see the Leafs of last year. As of right now, I'm not that optimistic. If I were to make a prediction right now based on what's going to happen with the Leafs the rest of the way, I don't think they make the playoffs. Because the answer has to come from within, and I don't know if these players are able to find that answer. And they have nothing to trade. So the cavalry isn't coming. You got to get healthy, and it's got to be the players. And unfortunately, if that doesn't happen very, very soon, maybe by the end of this road trip, the coach is probably gone. So they're in a tough spot, but there is hope. There is some light at the end of the tunnel. If they get there, who knows? That's a big question. But let me know in the comments below. What do you think about this Leafs team? Leafs fan or not? Let me know what you think. Is it time to write them off? Or because of their history, specifically in the regular season as a team who consistently makes the playoffs, we have to give them some more time and the benefit of the doubt? You let me know in the comments below.